to the Old Man Orange Podcast, where we do another Old Man Orange Presents episode of Via VHS. Let's jump on in and see what movie we're talking about this time.
So this week on Via VHS, Spencer and I are taking you to the suck zone. We're doing Twister. All right, so... Sorry.
I love that because it ties into, like, they originally had this idea for Twister. They're like, you know what, we're going to put this on the posters. Like, it sucks. And it's just like, then they thought, they probably had that idea for, like, a moment where, like, man, this could be... Wait a second, what if the movie bombs? Like, they're just going to be like, told you, it said it sucked right when you walked in. What were you expecting? That's like one of those ones that would only work if you had like a real like in-joke to kind of go with it. You know what I mean? Like I feel like you can't take a serious movie and put "it sucks" right on the cover.
No, you can't. It might have worked for it with this one, but only if Philip Seymour Hoffman's delivering it. But
yeah, he probably could have delivered it. You know, when it sucks, it blows, kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, we're so this week we're talking Twister, 1996, directed by Jean de Bont. Am I saying this? How do you say his name? How do you say it?
Jean de Bont?
Yeah.
He probably has a different way of kind of pronouncing it, but I almost want to say that's what I remember how he pronounced it and whatnot. And, you know, like, I always think, because, you know, he's that guy he was like a cinematographer, like, on a ton of, like, huge movies, like Die Hard and Basic Instinct, and even, like, things like, this is probably not a huge movie to anybody, but, like, Flesh and Blood, very interesting movie. I was like, oh, he's a cinematographer on that? And then it's like he did Speed, it's like, I'm going to direct something, and then, like, that went, you know, blew up, and then it felt like he could do whatever he wants, and it kind of sounds like even on this movie, like, that guy just kind of came in and just, you know, wasn't, like, the greatest guy to work with, nothing was ever his fault, let's say. He's one of those directors. It's always everybody else's fault. And if I don't like shooting in one direction, let's switch to the other side and see what happens.
Hey, listen, he's method. He's got his way of doing things. He delivered 2 classics in a row in my book.
Yeah, I agree too.
Yeah. But yeah, 1996, this is his second highest grossing film in 96, I think.
Right after Independence Day.
Yeah, after Independence Day. So big hit, huge tentpole. This is an event film. You know, obviously you have, you know, advertising out the wazoo. This movie was everywhere. Has a big soundtrack because that's what they did in the 90s. You get some Shania Twain.
And Van Halen.
That's what
I always think about. I'm like, it's got Van Halen on the soundtrack. And is it Van Halen with that third singer?
I think maybe. I didn't listen to the Van Halen track.
It's like right around that same time period where there's that one album that they got that doesn't have David Lee Roth and doesn't have Sammy Hagar guy. Yeah, it has that other guy. It's like they were going for like the 90s thing with like, you know, everybody kind of tried. You know, Motley Crue kind of gave it a go with John Corabi, which I do like that album a lot. But you know what I mean? Everybody was trying something different. And then a couple of years later, it's like, no, go back to what we...
Well, this is, at that time, you know, Shania Twain's really big. Mm-hmm. And... you know, her husband was Mutt Lange, who I think he produced all the Def Leppard albums. He did a bunch of like hair band stuff and was big into that and kind of incorporated that into country a little bit, a little. And then, so Shania was at her peak with this soundtrack. And I remember in the South, I don't know if it was this way where you lived. In the South, she was somewhat polarizing because she would show her belly button.
Oh, he's breaking all the rules.
She's breaking all the rules, all the in the Bible Belt that wasn't flying. You can't buy that Shania Twain cassette. She's showing her belly button on the CMT, and you know, so it wasn't working out. And but yeah, I like this song. You know, it was a fun thing. And then of course, you know, starring Bill Paxton, Helen Hunt. You got Philip Seymour Hoffman, and basically he plays Jack Black.
Yeah, it definitely is like a very Jack. Well, this is like that weird type here because I was thinking like the exact same year, 1996. I was watching this again recently, but like in the Cable Guy of Jack Black, and I love how Jack Black plays like the straight man in that one. He's like the serious Jack Black role I've ever seen, other than maybe like you know, like King Kong or something like that. Like, he's like barely saying anything funny in that. He's just the friend who's like, "Yo, what are you doing? Hang out with that Cable Guy. He's weird." You know, didn't you see Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
So you know you get Philip Seymour Hoffman kind of doing that in this one, just like really like chewing the scenery and having a good old time.
Yeah, I read that in the trivia that in the scene that we were referencing earlier, the suck zone, where he's being ultra creepy, Like this is one of those. That's one of those scenes where it wouldn't have flown today. Like it wasn't that bad, but like if he was being all pervy and stuff, they would have been like, "No, you're a little rapey. You got to turn that down." But I read that at one point he crosses his legs like Sharon Stone.
Basic instinct. Speaking of the cinematographer here.
Yeah, exactly. And you could see his goods. You could see his goods. And they had to take that out of later releases. So I don't think if you're looking for if you really want to see Philip Seymour Hoffman's balls, you're not going to see it on Netflix. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. But.
Well, that makes me wonder. It's like so. Obviously, that would have been in the theater cut. It sounded like because when I saw that, it sounded like they cut it out of the VHS and the DVD. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those ones. It's like, oh, well, obviously, I must have saw that then. Ripe young age. Old Philip Seymour Hoffman up there, just exposing it all.
Hey. You know what? He went for it.
He did.
At all times. He's extra a little creepy in this, but I like him. So this is I guess an expose into storm chasers and twisters, and basically this is just about a day in the life of these storm chasers, and they're trying this new technology. They're trying to get it up into this twister. They're trying to get this machine into the suck zone and get the stuff up into the twister, and like they'll learn all this new stuff. And but there's all this like character stuff going on. Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, they're divorced and all this stuff. So it's a real fun movie. And I mean, did you watch this one a lot when you were growing up?
I did.
This
was one of the ones big deal. And not only that, like I remember like going because this was one of the ones I went and saw in theaters as well too. And this is like that kind of movie that like I don't know. I feel like this movie was massively huge for a good while, and it kind of just so slowly faded away as time went on. And this is like that olden days where like you literally like they would almost like have like brand new technology, and it's almost like you went to the theater to go see it. It almost had that feeling of probably how people in like the 10s would go to the movies, be like, "Oh, what are they going to show us this week?" Because that was like. You almost don't get movies like that anymore because I think CG is one of those ones. It's like nowadays it's whatever. It's just there. Nothing's very important about it. Of course, they don't do normal practical effects for the most part anymore. So there's never like those movies. It's just like, hey, come see this marvelous thing we just created. You know what I mean? This is almost like one of those like last movies. I mean, this is like a big hoorah time period because you had Independence Day, you had Dante's Peak, you have Twister, and all these kinds of like huge movies are like come see the special effects. Jurassic Park and all that stuff. And as by the 2000s kind of roll around, it's kind of like, what are you going to do? Who are you going to impress after that? You know what I mean? Like, everybody it's like anybody and their mother has like, CG and all the effects that they need in their movie, and it's not that big of a deal anymore. But this is that one where it's like, oh my gosh, check this out.
Well, first of all, to add on to that, the effects in this movie hold up pretty well, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some stuff, obviously, you could tell it's the 90s, but there's a lot of 90s movies when you go back and watch the CGI, you're like, oh, you almost cringe. It's like, this hurts it's like, it's like that uncanny valley thing almost, where it's just like, something's not right. But this one holds up pretty well. And I mean, everybody was amazed at the time, with the cow.
Yeah, the cow, the famous... It's even like on the cover of like one of the DVDs or something like that.
We've got cows. I mean, that stuff is done pretty well. I mean, and I feel like there's also some pretty good practical effects mixed in there too, especially like the scene towards, I guess, the middle of the movie where they're in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of stuck in there, and the tornado is hitting. They're just like everything falls through the ceiling, like oh, here comes a beam, and here comes the light post, and here comes a car. Like everything falls through the ceiling. I think all that stuff held up pretty well.
No, I definitely think so.
Yeah. So I mean, this was a big film. I mean, obviously, produced by Spielberg. This was. I guess it was a joint collaboration, I guess, between Universal and Warner Brothers. I knew Universal was involved.
And Amblin. So it was like three big old studios together, whatnot. They got Michael Crichton to write the script, you know what I mean? Because this is like that, like Michael Crichton, like just, does all kinds of magic. And, well, technically, he always says, science movies,
Science movies. Well,
like the 13th Warrior.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to touch on that because Michael Crichton, obviously at this time, after Jurassic Park, everybody wanted whatever, and they hyped it up. And with Congo, it didn't work.
Yeah.
At least from a monetary. I feel like we talk Congo every time we end up on a podcast. Like Congo comes up somehow.
Well, it's like when we did the Congo episode. It's like when I went to rewatch it because I hadn't seen the movie for a long time. I'm like, I don't know what everybody's saying. I know everybody always kind of talks crap on the movie. I'm like, I kind of like Congo quite a bit. I always have a good time with that film.
It has its moments where I kind of enjoy it, but overall I was pretty unimpressed last time I watched it. But yeah, this is the other Michael Crichton film after Jurassic Park, and this one was a huge hit. This one's really good, and I think what makes this film work is like disaster movies after this, maybe 2012, Day After Tomorrow, different things like that. It's kind of the same formula where it's like crazy, unheard of weather phenomenon that makes no sense, hits Earth. It's destroying all of Earth, but somehow only hits major cities like New York, Philadelphia, Los Angeles. And then there's a guy who's estranged from his kids, and he's got to go help his kids. And that's usually the formula. So it would have been really easy for this film to be like, oh, okay, well, there's this crazy phenomenon when a bunch of twisters break out and they're all over, and this one guy knows how to stop the twisters or something. It would have been really easy to go that way. But instead what they did was they went like, well, we're going to follow storm chasers. We're going to have this kind of camaraderie, this group, they kind of romanticize it to an extent.
Well, they're very ragtag science. It's that kind of thing where you know that like there's a bunch of people that afterwards they watch this movie like, man, I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to be a storm chaser. You know what I mean? It's almost that like Top Gun thing. I'm surprised that if there was money involved in probably this science thing, they would have booths outside of theaters to sign people up.
Oh yeah, this is this really definitely glorifies the storm chaser craze, and there's two teams. Okay, we'll back up a little bit. So kind of where the movie starts is Bill Paxton wants a divorce, and he's like he's perfect for this role, by the way.
Oh yeah,
totally. They wanted a lot of other people. The only other originally this was Tom Hanks, and I just can't picture Tom Hanks in this role. I mean, he's so great, and he would have killed it obviously because he's Tom Hanks. But I just feel like Bill Paxton was perfect. The only other name that I read that made kind of sense was Kurt Russell, and I could see him working in this. But this was perfect for Bill Paxton.
Well, I really think that the thing that makes Bill Paxton is because in a sense, Bill Paxton is always kind of like. He's never really that star. He's kind of like a character actor, if anything like that. You know what I mean? Most of his movies, he's always like, a C or D or B character kind of, and he's never really that. And I think by putting him kind of like, hey, he's your main character in this ginormous blockbuster movie, it makes it almost have a little bit more real of a feel. Like if you would have had Tom Hanks, not saying he wouldn't have done awesome, not saying Kurt Russell would have, but you got your AAA actor in there, and it kind of just feels almost like Tom Hanks is, chasing storms. It doesn't almost feel like as much of a real guy as it feels like Tom Hanks came to town to figure out what's going on.
It's like if they would have put Harrison Ford as Alan Grant in Jurassic Park.
Exactly. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like it would have taken away. It's like because that's why I think Harrison Ford worked so well as Indiana Jones because realistically, I mean, he had Star Wars, I guess, at that point. So take that back.
Yeah.
But beyond that, though, it wasn't like he had like all those other like characters stacked on top of each other yet.
Yeah.
You can even say Blade Runner could have been that kind of weird by that point because it's like, he's already had all these ones, but that still works too.
Yeah. All those movies were kind of like in a very short amount of time and it worked out. But Bill Paxton was perfect for this. And he's kind of just your quintessential everyday man kind of thing. James Cameron recommended him for this role because they're best buddies, Alien. And he's, what else was he in?
He's True Lies.
True Lies, okay.
He's in Terminator, the original, because he's the punk rocker guy that Arnold Schwarzenegger shoves his arm through.
Yes, that's right.
That's what I always think of him as, is that one. I think he's in almost every one of James Cameron's movies. In Titanic, he's in the very beginning. He's the research scientist.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about Titanic. Yeah.
I always want to say he's even in Avatar, but I couldn't tell you who he was in that because I've only seen that movie once.
I don't. Oh, you've only seen it once?
I've only seen it once.
You should probably keep it that way. Yeah. So Bill Paxton is, I guess, a former storm chaser, and the film just kind of it throws you into this scenario where all these bad things are about to happen at once. Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton are estranged couple, and Bill Paxton wants a divorce because he's got this new girl that he wants to marry, and he's traveling through BFE, Oklahoma to find Helen Hunt to get her to sign these divorce papers. And it just so happens to be on a day where it's going to be like the biggest tornado day in the history of tornadoes.
Yeah.
Like, it's just conveniently. And Bill Paxton is the ex-leader of this team of ragtag storm chasing misfits, and he's coming to get the papers. And basically, through a series of events, he doesn't get the signature, but he gets wrapped up in this storm chasing day. And the first half of the film, he's trying to get away from it. The second half of the film, he's like super invested in it, and it's awesome. I love this dumb movie. I really do.
Well, the nice thing too about this movie is this movie just takes off right at the beginning. There's none of that like 30-minute build up where we're getting like this backstory of like family and whatnot and so on. Like no. This movie, it's like it starts off. It's 1969. Helen Hunt's like a little kid. There's this giant like F5 like tornado coming in. She goes to like run into like the basement with like her mother and whatnot, and the dad's like holding down the shutters. He's like, "Go to the back! Go to the back!" And the next thing you know, that rips the door off, and it just takes her dad away, and that's the last she ever sees of him. And she's like, "That's it. I gotta take down this store." she's like waiting to like hunt down a dragon who just like ate her father, and like she's like, "Once I become a knight, I'm going out there and crusading. I'm learning everything there is to know about these."
So Helen Hunt is in this film an attractive storm chaser with daddy issues.
Yeah.
Also storm issues.
Yeah, well, there's all these things are kind of coming together. And you know what, I'm going to say this real quick before I almost forget this idea. Something else I really like about this movie that like a lot of other disaster movies like never seem to always do is I like how there's no kids in this movie. You know, it's all adults.
Yeah.
Which, because, you know, so many times it's always like, you know, even movies I like, they always got to throw the kids in there, or they got to throw the family element in there, or even like things like I was thinking like The Day After Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise version like that. Like they got to throw like the two worst kids, the kids that you just hope get vaporized at any moment, and they never do. Even like when you think that one older boy, like, good, he ran away, I hope he fucking dies out there, and then it's like he comes back at the end, like, no. He was like, dead to me by that point. No way is live action Goku boy coming back.
I that's like it's the Carl syndrome from like Walking Dead, where it's just like I quit watching that show until they kill Carl, please, for the love of God, just kill that character. I stopped watching for other reasons, but that's how I used to feel watching Walking Dead, just like kill the kid. Yeah, you're right. I think there's like a few kids in it, but like there are no major roles like speaking parts or like influential parts where there's kids in the film.
Like nobody on either the ragtag group of like Helen Hunt or like the ultra funded professional group of Carrie Elways has a single child on it. Everybody's an adult in this one, which is almost kind of weird because a lot of times Steven Spielberg like kind of he has the problem because he's like well, children worked out really well for me, and then you know once again let's get to not Close Encounters Day After Tomorrow.
Jurassic Park.
Not Jurassic Park. That's kids. That one works fine.
War of the Worlds.
Yeah, War of the Worlds. Jeez, I was like, that's the one where it's just like, no, kids didn't work out that time. That was where you screwed up the kids real bad, Steven. You know, other than that, though, it's a good movie, but those kids, God. Dakota Fanning and Goku.
I don't know how much input he had on this film. I think because I read that Bill Paxton didn't talk to him until like a year and a half later. Spielberg was like, "Thanks for the money." I mean, this was pretty much just he just funded this film with DreamWorks, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, no, DreamWorks was
Or was Amblin, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, this film is it's just from a scientific meteorological standpoint. All right, if that's what you're looking for with this film, it's like a realistic storm chasing scenario. You just go watch a documentary because this film is like very, very unrealistic. It's super sensationalized, but it doesn't matter. It's like Rocky IV or one of those movies where you know it's dumb when you're watching it. Like Rocky IV is dumb. It's a bad movie.
That's my favorite dialogue, Rocky. I don't know why you're talking smack on that one.
It's mine too. It's mine too. But I know it's bad. Like I watch it and I'm like, this is I don't like it more than the first one. But when I watch Rocky IV, I'm like, man, this is terrible. But I love it. I don't care. This film's kind of like that, but I think it's much smarter than people give it credit for. Like from a scientific perspective, it's very flawed, but I think people don't like I like the characters in it. I think that's one of the best parts about it. All the characters are really good. Are they kind of generic and predictable? Maybe, but it works. This film is just fun.
Yeah, and I'll even say this: I don't think a lot of the characters are as generic as you sometimes see in other disaster films. Like I feel like they got a lot. Yeah. There is a lot of character kind of going on, in it and whatnot. I mean, look at Philip Seymour Hoffman. I mean, he's got more character than probably anybody else on there. But even the rest of the team they're kind of with, even though some of them are you don't really realize it, but you look something like, oh man, some of those people are so 90s. Just flannels and certain haircuts and what have you, and and even just I guess just Bill Paxton's character and Helen Hunt and whatnot, and they just got that good chemistry and that good they can argue, but you never feel like it's just oh geez, not this again. It's never bad. It's all smooth, feels kind of realistic at the same time for that part, and it works. And then even you got Cary Elwes being a bad guy, which is not really a common thing for Cary, it seems like.
He reminded me of his character Days of Thunder in this.
Oh, yes, that's true. I forgot he is in that one too.
Yeah, and then he didn't play a bad guy again, I guess, until Stranger Things, when he was the bad guy. He's the mayor.
Huh.
But I don't think that was season 3. I don't know. It was the season where there was a fair. I remember that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But Cary Elwes. So that's the two intersecting elements of this film. So there's a day with a bunch of tornadoes that provides all your action, your excitement, and it really does get really suspenseful and interesting. And the way they, talk science in this film, I mean, it's probably ridiculous and all bullshit, but I still really get into it. It's like the dino DNA from Jurassic Park. It's dumb. It's probably not ever going to work, but it seems like it is. So you buy it. Mm-hmm. And so you have the tornadoes, and then you have the other element is Bill Paxton and his fiance are going to get these divorce papers. They get wrapped up in this storm chasing scenario, this historic day of tornadoes. And Bill Paxton just keeps leaving his fiance with random people while he just throws her into the most dangerous scenario possible.
Well, that's always a fair thing too. It's honey, how about you go ride with the creepy fat boy? I'm going to go ride with my ex-wife. Exactly. Well, what are you going to do? Well, we're chasing storms. What do you think we're going to do? It's not that big a deal. It's what we used to do. You know?
We're going to do all the things we used to do.
Yeah. And just turn that CB radio off if you don't mind. Yeah, okay, cool. That's the only thing I think is kind of weird. There's that scene where, they almost kind of, confess to each other that, they still like each other, and the CB radio is left on. And it's for the most part, I don't know, every CB radio I ever used, you always had to hold down some form of a button. Is Helen Hunt just holding down that button like a jerk? And being I know where this is going.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. Because she definitely was pretending she was stalling and pretending that she was busy, but she was definitely stalling. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
Stalling. Look at you and your stalling.
Yeah, I know. I'm stalling too. Oh my God. So you have that element, and then you have Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt, and you're oh man, I hope they end up together. And you have this whole romantic thing going on, and then you have the fiance, which she isn't they do pretty well with that character. She's not a bad person. Mm-hmm. You just she doesn't fit in the movie, so she's annoying in that context because it's we're trying to chase storms and we're trying to, be all badass and whatever. And she's just whining, complaining, but she's acting like most of us would. And that's that scenario, but you hate her anyway, but she's not really a bad character. So you have that whole element. And then you have the Cary Elwes element that they add into it where they got corporate sponsors.
Yeah, exactly. Oh God, they're being sponsored by Pepsi. I see how this is going.
Oh yes, Pepsi really did tie themselves into this movie like they did everything else in the 90s. No, there's so Cary Elwes' character is, the first time you see these two groups together, they intersect on a road, and it's you got Bill Paxton and his nice new Dodge Ram. And it's awesome, and then every other vehicle in their their little posse, I guess. Their little
Convoy, yeah.
Yeah, their little convoy is basically duct tape, falling apart. So they're like the plucky underdogs. And then you've got Carrie Elwes. They got these big, giant black GMC, I think. I don't know what it is, but it's badass, and they're definitely funded. And turns out Carrie Elwes is a dick, and he stole Bill Paxton's idea, and except his little balls that go into the tornado are actually squares.
Yeah, that's how he gets around the copyright.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like once it shows that like at some point these guys used to all work together, and then Carrie Elwes is like, oh, he sold out. Like, well, no, he probably just more advanced his business. Like those kind of things you sort of see, and you go like, I know that like you always want to villainize the guy who decides to like up the business ante, but at the same time, like, I don't know, I feel for Carrie Elwes. Like, I get it, you know what I mean? There was an offer on the table, and he decided, you know what, we need some more money here. I'm sick and tired of like waking up next to Philip Seymour Hoffman, shirtless in the same hotel room with me.
If Pepsi wants to sponsor me as a storm chaser, I'm taking it.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, we could die at any moment. Yes, I'm signing that contract. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. When I was watching the movie, I'm like, you know what? I don't really have any hate towards Carrie Elwes' character. I get it. Like, you know what I mean? I totally get it. I know they want me to hate him, but I get it.
I don't hate him for selling out, but I do. He did steal an idea, like completely stole it, which is douchey.
Yeah. He went like, Thomas Edison on them.
Yeah, like what if somebody came out with a podcast called Old Man Citrus? You wouldn't be a little pissed.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, hey. Unless it directs more views to mine because they get confused and they think that they're listening to it, like then I'd be like, well, maybe it's all working out for the better. You know what I mean?
Oh man!
It just right off as one of those ones where it's like the Lord works in mysterious ways.
Oh man! So basically, the whole movie is they have 3 or 4 of these Dorothy machines. Bill Paxton's group.
I think they almost have 4 of them because they released like 2 of them
at
once, which always kind of throws me off. And the one thing I always thought, even as a kid, I remember when I first time watched it, like there's the part where like it just like tips over. It's like, well, can't you just pick that back up and throw them back in there? Like, no, it's done, man. It's done. That's it. It's gone. Leave it.
It tipped over. I'm like,
it tipped over.
Does it have to be sitting a certain way to get into the suck zone?
Wouldn't the tornado just, even if it didn't like suck the whole machine up, wouldn't it pick those up off the ground even easy? It picked the cow up the ground.
No. You see, that's the thing. They needed Pepsi later on. If they didn't have the Pepsi cans.
No, and a little bit of Mountain Dew sprinkled in there too. I love that there's a few Mountain Dew cans poking out.
It's like, yeah, because I think the director stepped in like, who's going to have a bag full of just Pepsi cans? Oh, Mountain Dew? Okay.
Yeah.
That's it?
No Diet Pepsi? Oh, okay. Okay.
His little on the nose. Can we just throw like one Coke can in? No. Absolutely not.
Coke's not sponsoring this. But Pepsi said specifically in their clause, no Coke cans.
Wouldn't it have been funny if so basically they use Pepsi cans, they cut them into like little wings. They get inspired by Helen Hunt's aunt. I guess we'll touch on that. But anyway, they cut these little things together to put on top of the balls so they'll get sucked into the tornado and spin up. Mm-hmm. But I think it would have been funny if Carrie Elwes tried to copy it and his was Coke. So he had the Coke.
He had Coke and maybe some Dr. Pepper or something like that.
Yeah. And then he dies. So that's like that would be the lesson, the moral of the story for Pepsi, for a new generation.
And then there's a third team that comes in, just newbies, and they got Dad's root beer or something.
RC Cola. Who are these nobodies?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, that would have been great. So yeah, basically the whole movie is them, Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton, working out their marital issues while trying to dangerously throw this machine into a tornado. When you put it that way, it sounds stupid. It's so awesome, and it is.
It really is. It really is just amazingly fun the whole way through. Like it's like if you want like a movie where you just have nothing but a good time, this is totally it by far. Like whole way.
Oh yeah, I it had been a long time since I rewatched this movie, and I had been wanting to do it for quite a while. And it's on Netflix. I actually own it. I had bought it like a couple months ago. I forgot I'd done that. And I was like, I'll pop this in and watch it. And I loved it. I was invested from the right from the very beginning. Kind of has not the same structure as Speed, but kind of like it throws you into it like Speed. And it's really, really exciting. And then, you have something for everybody. You have a little bit of comedy, you have action, you have the love story. So this is like, it's hitting every cylinder. You can bring the whole family to this. And, well, maybe not the whole family, but most of the family.
Yeah, pretty much anybody. I mean, it's one of those ones, I guess I saw this when I was 8 years old, whenever it came out, give or take 8 or 9. You know what I mean? So it's just like, bring them along. I saw Jurassic Park when I was all of 6 or 5, and I sat by myself in the theater. So probably everybody else around's like, what's wrong with that? Those parents, they just let that kid just anywhere in this terrific carnivorous movie. Come on.
How old was I when Twister came? I was 11, going on 12 when this movie came out, and I remember being really pumped for it. I can remember the hype for this one. I always thought the Shania Twain song for it was "Whose Bed Is Your Boots Been Under," but I was wrong. It's a different song. And the song is has nothing to do with tornadoes or anything like that. But I remember it playing everywhere, and this film was just on every corner. They ended up making a ride for Universal. Did you ride it? Didn't you say
no?
You
that one was in Florida. It wasn't at the Hollywood.
Okay.
One. I love how it was replaced. I always thought of it was replaced by some Jimmy Kimmel's walk through New York thing. It's it's always amazing whenever you hear that. That's the ride you replaced the Twister one.
Twister.
Now, I mean, great. Because over here, in the Hollywood, this is the ride that was kind of I sounded kind of like what the Twister ride sort of was, but this version we had a backdraft one in Hollywood.
Oh my god!
And that's the one. I think about that nowadays. If they still have that there, and they had it there for a long time. I think they got rid of it maybe mid 2000s or something like that. But even then, because that's another one of those movies that just like Twister was humongous when it came out. It was such a big deal, but it kind of after a couple of years sort of fell under the radar and just kind of disappeared. I mean, if you ask somebody, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, I remember that," but it wasn't it was just brought up in conversation. Independence Day seems to be you never go through a year without hearing Independence Day at some point. I think because it's tied into a holiday, that movie will always continuously come back around no matter how long we go into it. It's literally going to be one of those movies a Citizen Kane or a Gone with the Wind. And I know some people be like, what? Don't you dare put that movie in the same camp. I kid you not, in 100 years, I bet you they'll still be playing Independence Day. On whatever they got in the future, they'll still be playing that movie every Independence Day.
To take movies to suppositories. Guess what? I shoved up my ass today. Independence Day.
Yeah, it'd be on Christmas you go see It's a Wonderful Life. Well, on Independence Day you go see Independence Day.
Yeah, it's I don't know. This film is it did fall kind of under the radar for a little bit, but it made a ton of money. It was absolutely massive when it came out. I used to watch this one all the time. It like I said, I hadn't watched it in a long time, but this was on repeat when I was a kid, and I kind of had a little bit of a thing for Helen Hunt, just a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I remember seeing a lot of those movies in theaters. It was just almost as a younger kid. But it's when saw Twister, when saw As Good as It Gets. When saw, I went to a girl's birthday party and we went to go see What Women Want. I was probably the only guy in there.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
With Mel Gibson and whatnot. That is a good one too. And it's there's these movies that are just these massive.
Castaway.
Yeah, Castaway. She was, she played in that one too. And what's the weird thing though is about Castaway or What Women Want. I can't remember which one came before. They're I think the same year. But Helen Hunt. I mean, she's still in stuff, but she kind of fades away as being in those massively huge movies.
Yeah, she kind of her character in this one's kind of similar to Ellie Sattler from Jurassic Park. Kind of got similar vibes to that a little bit, but except she, I don't know, she's definitely got a thing for Bill Paxton still. She can't let that go. She's got tornado issues, daddy issues, but she's determined. She's badass, and she's I'm getting Dorothy into the tornado, come hell or high water. And I like her character in this. And they don't damsel in distress with her too much. Like she's just in the thick of it, like right where Bill Paxton is, and they just kind of work together no matter what the situation is. But and then you got the rest of that crew. You got Cameron from Ferris Bueller.
Oh, that's right. I didn't put 2 and 2 together, but that's totally him.
Well, he's in Speed also. He's in he's the one guy in Speed, the yokel guy. He says, "Oh, I'm just a tourist."
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He's in both those movies, and he's got his part. He has a little bit more speaking part in Speed though, but this. It's kind of a fun thing where they're just kind of traveling the countryside like a bunch of tornado pirates, and they go to Helen Hunt's aunt's house and they eat the best breakfast I've ever seen in my entire life.
Oh yeah, and that's like the whole thing. They're just like, we're hungry. Helen, take us to your like aunt's house. Come on, let's go. And they just all like storm in there. Probably the aunt's like, oh jeez, not these guys again. I mean, like I like them, they're nice and all, but every single time they want me to cook a breakfast for like a lumber crew.
Yeah.
And that Philip Seymour Hoffman guy keeps asking for seconds, thirds, fourths, and fifths.
But did you see the steak? How could he need more than one? That was like giant T-bone.
So massive.
Like 2 eggs. Gosh. It made me almost want to move to Oklahoma for like 2 seconds. And then I'm like, no.
The one time I was in Oklahoma, or the couple times I went through Oklahoma, I remember always like the couple restaurants went through. There was like, they were all super good. I was always super impressed.
Oh yeah, once you cross like Oklahoma and especially going to the south, everything tastes good.
Everything is, and on every corner you can you're never in like any like spare of fried chicken. It's everywhere. California's actually becoming kind of like that nowadays. Nowadays you can almost get good fried chicken just about anywhere in California. That wasn't the case like less than 5 years ago. It seemed like.
Here in the South, Publix, the grocery store Publix, that's where you get the fried chicken. It's good fried chicken. Shout out to Publix. Also Bojangles. I think pretty much any incarnation of Via VHS has to talk about Bojangles in an episode at some point. It's like Bojangles and Cheerwine. Those are like, I'm not saying they sponsor the show. They don't. But if they want to, they could. I'd totally be Carrie Elwes. I'd sell out in a heartbeat.
Yeah, why not? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm going to be doing this anyway. If you want to give me money to do it.
I know that.
Yeah.
This is so off topic, but when I had like the whole like cancer thing or whatever, I was going to Popeye's Chicken because it was on the way home. And I was like, because they tell you it's like, you get this point where your white blood cell's so low, it's like, well, I guess I could always have fried chicken and Dr. Pepper. I was like, I came in there so often, so like, can I get like a sponsor? Like, would you want to sponsor me like a cancer victim? Like, oh, cancer victims can eat here. Because it's like the only thing. It's like I can't have any fresh veg. It's like funny. It's like can't have any vegetables. Can't have anything that's like raw or sushi or any of that stuff. You know what I mean? I used to always make the joke. It's no sushi, no salads, none of that stuff. It's got to be cooked to the max. What's cooked to the max? Fried chicken.
I like your style. You not only were you victimized by your unfortunate circumstances, but also those Popeyes biscuits, man. Oh. They're like that's like putting like margarine on a baking soda tablet and putting it in your mouth. You want some biscuits, dude? Bojangles. if you're ever in North Carolina, I'm gonna make it happen. I'm getting you some Bojangles. You won't even know what Popeyes is anymore. You're like, what?
Yeah, it'll just erase that from memory and whatnot.
Yeah, it would just move here. But anyway, back to Twister. Yeah, so I mean, look, this film, I think it holds up well. I think it's still really, really fun. I was honestly invested in it the whole way through. I mean, I'm surprised they never made a sequel. I don't know how you would make a sequel to it, but it seems like they would find a way to do that. And they never did, which kind of makes it better because all you have is this. You only have this one. It's not been tainted by a bunch of like subpar, and this film is kind of underrated, especially from a critical standpoint. I don't understand why people were so down on it. I mean, it is kind of dumb, but I don't think the characters were bad. I feel like I actually really liked everybody. Even the bad guys were really good at being bad guys.
Yeah, I saw that too because that's something that I just never knew about because everybody I knew, this was one of those films that was just like people loved it. Like, and then I saw like that critical response, even like Siskel and Ebert, they're like, it's okay if you feel like being stupid for an hour and a half, and it's just like, oh, that's not a very nice review.
Roger Ebert is my favorite movie critic of all time. So let me just say that before I say this. But when it comes to movies like this, he perplexes me because like he hated this movie, but he loved Anaconda. Like he loved Anaconda. Like he's got like this rave review about it, and then he hated Gladiator. And I'm like, why? How do you hate? But yeah.
That's always kind of like Larry Moulton, because Larry Moulton's always kind of my like go-to guy for like a classic like film
great.
Reviewer. And so, but every once in a while, it's like he'll have certain ones where it's just like, what? Like, were you just in a bad mood that day? Like, that can't be true. Like, and I think that is a sort of like after when you're just like forced to watch, like 5 movies a day. I think sometimes it's just like if you just happen to be in that day, you're like, screw this movie, it's a stupid tornado. What's a big deal? Whatever. I've seen a tornado before. Whatever. Tornado chasing movie, 2.5 stars. Call it a day.
It's definitely true. Somebody was suggesting recently, and I can't remember who the director was, so y'all have to look this up. But they were suggesting that after 10 years, a movie that's been on Rotten Tomatoes 10 years gets a chance to be revisited, and their score gets a chance to be revisited. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a great idea. I think this score would be higher. I think it's a 54 or something like that.
Yeah,
I think this film would have a better score if it was reassessed, because it's just the entertainment value usurps the flaws with the film. And I didn't find like usually with movies like this, I end up like there's certain points where I roll my eyes. I'm just like, oh, really? And there's moments in this film that I should do that, but it is so engaging and the sound is so good and it's just like so menacing that. Like, yeah, I'm in it. And so high marks for Twister all around. Any last comments on the old Twister there on the suck zone?
Well, the one thing I think is kind of interesting is that this is also like the first DVD to ever come out. And I can literally remember, because I had one of those friends that was like one of those ones, like their parents they bought like everything. Like when like they had all the laser discs, so I got like to go over there and venture through and watch all these great movies and nice widescreen presentation in the 90s. And I can remember they had the old, I always call them the flippy folds of like the Warner Brothers ones where like you click the plastic open and it has like the flappy like cardboard. I can picture that exact Twister copy right now in my head and go, oh yeah, I totally remember that one. I mean, like I have mine right now. I have the Blu-ray one, but having that old flippy fold one, I was like, oh. But this would have been that movie that's like would have sold you on a DVD player practically, especially if you threw some special features on there too to top it off.
And especially if you had like surround sound, because this movie's sound was legit.
Yeah. So
was
much
it
so,
THX?
It might be because it's Industrial Light Matters does the special effects. So I couldn't see why it wouldn't be though.
It's got to be. Yeah.
It is one of those movies too where John DeBont just like he sent out letters to every theater and it's like, yo, crank this stuff up whenever you play it, because that's how you get the full effect. So everybody did that, and it blew out like a bunch of people's like surround sounds in their theater. Probably so pissed at that guy, like stupid guy is fucking. Where's he from? Like Sweden or whatnot? Like stupid Swedish guy or whatnot, giving me like a letter telling me to turn my speakers up, and then I didn't know he was gonna have the booming tornado come in that's gonna blow everything out.
Damn. Yeah, this movie I could definitely see wrecking some surround sounds, especially back in the day, especially even at home in the early 90s. Yeah, man, this film, a huge nostalgia factor for this film, holds up well. CGI is still pretty good. It's still 90s CGI, but still, I mean, definitely very passable. And so definitely watch Twister. Definitely recommend it. If I was going to give it a number score, and remember there's no algorithms to these, I'm gonna give this film an 8. An 8. A solid 8. I mean it's definitely not intelligent from a scientific standpoint, but from an action movie standpoint, it's really, really good. Paced really well. So yeah, Twister. I guess we got to do Speed soon. We got to do that at some point.
We should, because that's what I was one time. I watched it again because I hadn't watched it in a long time, about a couple months ago, and I was like, that's another movie you put on the whole way through. You almost kind of forget that you're just watching it. You're like sucked in so much from beginning to end. It's it's no different than Twister. You're into it the whole way through, and it's just like, man, this movie's good beginning to end. Fun factor is through the roof. Like those are just those time periods where they just made just such dialed in films. It's just, how could you not like those ones? Like, it almost feels like those ones. I feel like when somebody tells me like they don't like those movies, unless for some reason they got some weird thing against it, like I hate bus drivers or something like that, or like, you know, tornadoes, like, you know, that killed my father. I saw the beginning scene. That was literally my story. Like, oh, okay, I got you. But beyond that, that's like one of those ones. If it's like you can't get in this, I just feel like you hate fun. Like that's just what I feel like.
Exactly.
It's just that kind of thing. At the end of the day, like, what's wrong with you? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. I mean, it's the modern day equivalent. It's like a Jurassic World where it's not good, but the entertainment factor is so high that it just elevates it past its flaws. It really does. And so if you haven't seen Twister before, it's on Netflix right now, I think still.
I think so, yeah. Or it's on Prime, I think, too, as well.
Might be, yeah. So, I mean, there's a couple places to watch it. If it's not on there when you watch this review, it's definitely worth plucking down a few dollars and watching something, especially if you want to reminisce back to 90s and corporate sponsor tie-ins and soundtrack tie-ins. I don't think there was a fast food tie-in for this thing, and I'm very disappointed for that. I didn't find one.
I don't remember one, to tell you the truth, you know, because I feel like I would have had, because I kept all those cups. Anything I could find, like, if Burger King or Taco Bell or anything had a cup, like, I kept them. I have a huge stack full of those, and I don't have a Twister one, so that's kind of my indication that there probably wasn't.
Yeah, I'm really shocked by that, because this is definitely tie-in, like, centric, but maybe, I guess, I don't know how close this was to Independence Day. Maybe Independence Day swallowed that up, but again, I don't really remember tie-ins for Independence Day either.
I got a fun Independence Day like door magnet. it's holographic too. Like back, remember when they had holographic cool stuff? Mm-hmm. So like you twist it back and forth, and you can watch the White House blow up and over again. It's probably the same thing that Osama bin Laden had in his like cave. Just twist it back and forth.
Screw America. No, probably. Actually, Independence Day had one tie-in. It was that Fruitopia machine. I always remember it every time I see it. There's that one scene they're getting ready to go to the roof, I think. Yeah. And the guy's like, "Oh my God, I gotta call my mother." And then like right there next to it is the Fruitopia machine. And I'm just like, oh man, that's 90s. You want to date the hell out of a movie? Throw some Fruitopia in it. Yep. But so anyway, thanks for listening to the review on Twister. I hope you had as fun as we did watching it and talking about it. Let us know what you think in the comments below if you're watching this on YouTube, or if you aren't watching this on YouTube and you just hear the podcast and you want to yell at me. I guess you can go to Twitter at Via VHS and you can yell at me there. And also in the links below, you'll see a link for Pizza Boyz with a Z, Boyz with a Z. That's your comic. So, shout that thing out, obviously. But also, any other things that you want to mention? Any last parting thoughts for Twister?
Last parting thoughts. I don't know. It's just one of those ones. Like it really reminds me of like almost like you don't get movies. I feel that like have that like grand scale. There was like the 90s was the last time period of movies that felt like massive and huge. You know,
that weren't superheroes.
Yeah, well, because nowadays, I think this is what makes movies feel so small nowadays. Is that I can tell that they're all shot like on like a green screen for the most part, and that always makes a movie feel so small. Like when you have these real world locations, even if you throw CG in there, but like it's still in a real world location, and you got the massive like widescreen presentation. You know, I think a lot of those like Kevin Costner movies, like he was like. Whether or not you like the movies, he was the master of like the large scale, like over the top, like huge adventure movie, whether it be The Postman or Waterworld or Dances with Wolves, even like Wyatt Earp and so on. Like those movies that just feel so big. Twister's one of those ones that's like that. And as I said, I just don't think you get movies like that at all. That scale is just not there anymore. Nobody's willing to fund that kind of stuff, And I mean, granted, I get it. Like once you want to save some money, but like. That, to me, is what makes these movies so magical. It's like, no matter what, I can't get that same experience anymore, but I can always go back in time and really, like, relish in it. And Twister, huge. I agree. This is the perfect movie. It's like, if you're going to have, like, your own outdoor movie theater with, like, a 150-inch screen and whatnot, boy, you could tear it up with, like, Twister out there.
Well, anyway, thanks for listening to Via VHS. Find us on Twitter at Via VHS. Be sure to go check out the Old Man Orange podcast. Indie Comics Central, isn't that your other podcast?
Yeah, we got the Indie Comics Club podcast.
Oh yeah, Indie Comics Club. I knew there was a thing like that. But anyway, yeah, check us out on Twitter at Via VHS, Instagram at Via VHS Pod. Let us know what you think about Twister. If you've never seen it, go watch it and enjoy the Sug Zone. And Via VHS is out.
Thanks again for listening to the Old Man Orange podcast. Sure, check out oldmanorange.com for more podcasts, cartoons, music, animation, and a whole lot more. We also have the Old Man Orange blog going with all kinds of fun stuff. If you easily want to support the show, use one of our Amazon links either on the website or in the description of the podcast below. Rate, review, and subscribe to the show either on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, Newgrounds, or anywhere else that you seem to get this podcast from. Grab the sitcom-styled comic book Pizza Boys on either Comics Central, Comixology, or Amazon. Want more podcasts? Check out the Indie Comics Club over at Comics Central. I also got a workout website called Thor's Hidden Gym, filled with fitness tips and tricks, videos, and a whole lot more fun stuff in the calisthenics world. Talk to us on Twitter at Spencer S. Holmes and Dunnigan Ryan. Like our Facebook pages of Old Man Orange Productions and Pizza Boys Comic. Thanks again. We're out of here.